I was 27 years old when my parents asked me to sit down in the living room, and I already knew it wasn't going to be fair. They used that careful tone, the one they save for decisions they've already made. This wasn't a conversation, it was a briefing. My sister Melissa sat beside them on the couch, relaxed, scrolling through her phone like this had nothing to do with her. That detail stuck with me. She wasn't nervous. She wasn't curious. She already knew. I stood across from them with my arms crossed, trying not to brace myself too hard. Somewhere in the back of my mind, I was already counting the ways this could go wrong. My father cleared his throat. My mother smiled tight, polite, practiced. They said they wanted to help both of their daughters get a proper start in life. Then they said it. Melissa was getting a brand new apartment downtown. Modern building. Secure entry, elevator, gym. Fully finished, fully furnished. My sister finally looked up, smiling slowly, already imagining herself there. Then my mother turned to me. They were giving me a house. For half a second, hope flared. A house sounded solid, permanent, equal. Then they showed me the photos. The place looked forgotten. Cracked walls, broken windows. A roof that sagged like it had given up years ago. Weeds swallowed the yard. It didn't look old. It looked written off. My mother rushed to explain. She said it had potential. She said I was practical, capable, the kind of person who could make something out of nothing. Melissa, she added, needed something safe and ready. I remember noticing something then. They were explaining my gift. They were celebrating hers. I had a question on my tongue, a simple one. Why does her safety matter more than mine? But I swallowed it. I always did. I nodded. I thanked them. I told myself this was still a start. The papers were signed quickly. No mortgage. No rent. Just mine. A week later, I stood alone in that house as rain leaked into a bucket on the floor and the heater refused to turn on. The walls creaked around me like they were protesting my presence. I told myself I could fix this. I told myself I always had. What I didn't know yet was that while they were focused on the house itself, they had overlooked something far more important. Because what my parents handed me wasn't just a problem to solve. It was paperwork they never fully read. The first problem showed up the night I moved in. It started raining after midnight. Not a storm, just enough to matter. I woke to a steady drip and found water leaking through the ceiling into the living room. I slid a bucket underneath it and went back to bed, already knowing this wouldn't be a one-time issue. It wasn't. The heater didn't turn on the next morning. One outlet sparked when I plugged in a lamp. The back door wouldn't seal all the way. None of it was dramatic on its own. But together, it felt like the house was testing how much responsibility I could carry without help. I called my parents once. I asked if they had inspection reports or repair records, anything I should know about. My mom sighed and reminded me the house was mine now. Old places had quirks, she said. My dad stayed quiet. That silence told me this wasn't new information. So I stopped asking and started fixing what I could. Not to prove anything, just because no one else was going to do it. That's when the contractors started asking questions. Who owned the property? Had it failed inspections before? Was the land zoned strictly residential? One inspector paused while reviewing my papers. Then he asked if I'd ever requested the full land file from the county, separate from the house. I said no. He nodded slowly and said, "That explains why this place sat untouched." That was the first time anyone suggested the house hadn't been ignored by accident. I asked my mother again why the house had been empty so long. She brushed it off, told me not to overthink it, told me I was good at handling things. But one thing was clear. They'd moved fast to give me responsibility and slow to give me information. Meanwhile, Melissa's apartment passed inspections effortlessly, approved, signed, celebrated. My parents talked about it like a smart investment. This house hadn't been chosen carefully. It had been available, so I started requesting records on my own. Quietly, copies of everything. Because once I saw the dates on those documents, I understood why the timing mattered. The confirmation came sooner than I expected. Less than 2 weeks after I requested the records, I received a letter from the county office. It wasn't dramatic. No warnings, no red stamps. Just a standard notice with a date printed at the top. The date was from 6 months before my parents called me into the living room. That's when I stopped guessing. The letter referenced a zoning review request tied to my property's address. Not the house itself, the land. The request had been filed, reviewed, and deferred. Deferred, not denied. Meaning someone had looked at it seriously and decided to wait. I checked the name on the request. It wasn't mine. It wasn't my sister's. It wasn't random. It was my father's. I sat at the kitchen table staring at that page longer than I want to admit. Not because I was shocked, but because suddenly everything lined up too cleanly. The timing, the rush to give me the house, the lack of paperwork, the way my questions were brushed aside. This hadn't been generosity. It had been a handoff. I requested more records, permits, old assessments, public meeting notes. Every document had dates, and every date pointed to the same window of time, right before the house was gifted to me. One document mentioned a future review. Another referenced neighboring properties. A third noted that the land was under consideration, pending safety compliance. None of this was hidden. It was just quiet. That's when I understood why my parents had moved so fast, why they'd framed the house as a burden, why they'd emphasized how practical I was. They weren't giving me a problem. They were moving one. I called my parents that night. I didn't accuse them. I didn't mention the records. I asked one simple question: why now? Why had they decided this year, this month, this exact moment to give me the house? There was a pause. My mom said it felt like the right time. My dad said nothing. That silence was confirmation enough. So I stopped asking questions out loud and started asking them on paper. I scheduled inspections properly, filed requests under my own name, followed the process exactly as written, because whatever decision had been made before the house was handed to me, it hadn't reached its deadline yet. And what my parents didn't realize was that once the property was in my name, the next decision wouldn't be theirs to make. Once I stopped asking my parents questions, everything moved. Not emotionally, procedurally. I submitted requests under my name. I scheduled inspections the official way. I replied to notices within their timelines, not when it was convenient. I didn't explain myself to anyone. I just followed the process exactly as written. That was enough. Emails that used to stall or bounce suddenly came straight to me. Inspectors stopped hesitating once I confirmed ownership. County offices that had once been vague became precise. Short answers, clear next steps, no extra commentary. One inspector walked the property early one morning. He measured distances, checked access points, reviewed the boundary lines. At the end, he said the house itself wasn't the concern. It's the land, he said, like it had always been. A week later, another notice arrived. This one wasn't open-ended. It referenced a scheduled review date. Fixed, assigned, already on the calendar. I didn't mention it to my parents. They noticed anyway. My mother called and asked why a forwarded letter had come in my name. Her voice was light, curious, almost careful. She asked what I was doing with the house, asked if I was planning something. I told her I was handling required inspections. She said inspections weren't necessary, that they'd never needed them before, that I shouldn't complicate things. I said everything was already scheduled. After that, the tone changed. My parents started checking in, asking how the house was holding up, asking if I needed help, asking if I was overwhelmed. Questions they hadn't asked when the roof leaked or the heater failed. Melissa texted once, a joke about how much work the place must be, then a follow-up question about whether I planned to live there long-term. I didn't answer, because by then, conversations didn't matter. Notices did, timelines did. Decisions were being processed whether anyone approved of them or not. And for the first time since this started, my parents weren't ahead of anything. They were waiting. They still thought this was about maintenance. What they didn't know was that the next notice wouldn't ask for updates. It would state an outcome. The notice arrived on a Monday, plain envelope. No markings that suggested urgency. Just my name, my address, and a reference number printed neatly in the corner. It looked like every other piece of official mail I'd received, quiet, unremarkable, final. Inside was a formal decision from the county review board. The language was careful and unemotional. It stated that the deferred zoning review tied to my property had been completed, that the land met the conditions outlined in the earlier assessment. that the classification attached to the parcel would now move forward as recorded. No opinions, no explanations, just a conclusion. The effective date was listed clearly. So was the case number. At the bottom, there was a sentence explaining that any objections would have needed to be filed before the review window closed. That window had closed the week before. I read the letter twice, not because I was excited, but because I wanted to be sure there was nothing ambiguous about it. There wasn't. Later that day, my phone rang. My mother asked if I'd received something from the county. Her voice was calm, but careful. She said they'd been contacted too, asked what it meant. I told her the review was finished. She asked what that meant for the house. I said the notice didn't mention the house. There was a pause. Then she asked if this was something we could talk about, if there was time to figure it out together. I checked the date at the top of the letter again. I told her the decision was already on record. After that, the questions stopped. The process moved forward exactly as outlined. Follow-up notices arrived. Timelines were confirmed. Nothing required my opinion anymore, only my acknowledgement. Melissa never moved into the house. My parents never asked me to transfer anything back. A few weeks later, I walked through the place one last time. Not with anger, not with pride, just clarity. The house hadn't been a gift. It hadn't been a punishment either. It had been a responsibility placed in my name at the wrong moment, for the wrong reasons. And once it was legally mine, the outcome didn't belong to anyone else. Because systems don't respond to intention. They respond to records.